Formula One arrives in Europe for the 7th round of the 2025 World Championship, which takes place at the 4.909-kilometer Autodromo Internazionale Enzo a Dino Ferrari. All eyes are on Ferrari, which in its home race must try to reverse a course that is currently leading it into troubled and murky waters. The first quarter of the Formula One season is in the books, and with only one podium in Jeddah and a sprint victory in China, that is certainly not enough for the ambitions held in Maranello over the winter period. The weekend by the Santerno River did not start in the best possible way for Charles Leclerc, who had to miss media day due to illness. There was even slight concern about the Monegasque driver ahead of today's free practice, enough to put Antonio Giovinazzi on alert, but the Ferrari driver was ready to get in the car for the first free practice session for the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix alongside his Maranello teammate Lewis Hamilton. So let's take a detailed look at how events unfolded for Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton in FP1 at Imola. For the first stint, both Ferrari SF25 cars immediately fitted the soft C6 tires, making their F1 debut. The goal is to collect useful data, beginning with a warm-up lap without pushing the pace. Constant speed passes are also performed to evaluate the effectiveness of the new rear aerodynamic configuration, which includes minimal but significant changes to the rear wing and beam wing. On the first timed lap, a rather conservative approach emerges, useful for evaluating setup and track conditions. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton deliberately avoid the curbs in the more technical corners of the second and third sectors. After a cool-down lap, they begin to push again. It is too early to draw conclusions, but the car's general behavior is very similar to what has been seen in previous weekends. Gradually, the drivers begin to find a better feeling with the SF25, which now gets closer to the curbs, though it still behaves nervously in direction changes. Both Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton abort their final attempt due to mistakes made between turns 6 and 9. The 7-time Formula One world champion appears more precise behind the wheel, while Charles Leclerc uses the lap to explore the car's limits in view of possible adjustments. It is a learning phase, where they are trying to adapt driving style to the car's reactions. The Monegasque driver reports some imprecision at the front end, while the garage technicians intervene for initial fine-tuning. The Maranello team is focusing on optimizing rear stiffness to reduce the car's tendency to lose grip. During his final lap, Charles Leclerc complained about excessive lift in turn 1. At first it seemed related to hybrid mapping, but in reality the discomfort was caused by his helmet lifting too much. Onboard footage clearly shows him trying to push it back down with his hands. On the technical side, the preset brake configuration in turn 1 has been revised to limit minor lockups. The Ferrari SF25 cars return to the track on the same used soft tires, and Charles Leclerc adopts a more aggressive approach, although he still struggles with an unstable car. The first sector data is striking, with car number 16 among the slowest, losing significant ground. It is clear that intervention is needed here, likely related to tire management on the push lap. After a quick pit stop, the Ferrari cars return to the track with a new set of softs. The car appears slightly more precise than in the previous attempt, but difficulties with corner entry and rotation remain evident. At this stage, Lewis Hamilton feels more at ease behind the wheel, managing to extract a bit more from the car. Charles Leclerc continues to struggle in turns 1, 2, and 12, while in direction changes, such as at the Variante Villeneuve, the SF25 looks unresponsive. A clear example comes at the Variante Alta, where the comparison with McLaren shows how much more nervous and unsettled the Ferrari is. Even if not dramatic, the lack of composure results in about a 10th lost. Charles Leclerc slightly improves in the first sector, but loses ground in the second. Another pit stop follows to refuel the car in preparation for a short race pace simulation. It remains to be seen which compound will be chosen for this test. In terms of race pace, Lewis Hamilton shows a fairly solid balance, while Charles Leclerc continues to struggle. Ferrari suffers from a lack of aerodynamic load, with suboptimal grip and evident difficulties in corner rotation. The transition from understeer to oversteer is particularly tricky. 2 minutes from the end, Gabriel Bortoleto crashes, bringing out a red flag. Fortunately, the Brazilian driver is okay. Wrapping up this initial evaluation phase, the issues already seen in previous weekends are largely confirmed. Until significant aerodynamic updates are introduced by the Maranello engineers and technicians, Ferrari's trajectory seems likely to remain unchanged. Attention now shifts to the second free practice session, in the hope that some adjustments might improve the overall balance and allow the SF25 to show more of its potential. After dominating in the Miami Grand Prix 2 weeks ago, McLaren therefore immediately made it clear they intend to repeat the feat at the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo e Dino Ferrari, where the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix takes place this weekend. Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris locked out the top two positions, with the World Championship leader setting the fastest time of 1.16.545, just 32 thousandths ahead of the British driver's twin MCL39 car. At this point, it is almost no longer a surprise to see a Williams among the frontrunners, as the Grove-based team holds a solid fifth place in the constructors' standings. Carlos Sainz, however, was particularly impressive, climbing all the way up to third place, just 52 thousandths off the lead. Also in the top 10 is his teammate Alexander Albon, who finished 8th. Everyone was working with Pirelli's new C6 compound, and the top 5 were separated by just 96 thousandths. George Russell took 4th place, 54 thousandths behind, while Lewis Hamilton's Ferrari completed the top 5. The 7-time Formula One world champion also had a long off-track excursion at the Variante Gresini and voiced a complaint against Isaac Hadjar, accusing him of performing a sort of brake test before the Rivazza Bridge. Both appeared to be in better form than their respective teammates. Charles Leclerc, for example, could do no better than 12th, although only half a second off the pace with the second SF25. It should be noted, however, that the Monegasque suffered a violent bout of flu yesterday and may not yet be at 100%, and he also complained about airflow issues affecting his helmet. Just behind him was the home hero, the much-anticipated Andrea Kimi Antonelli, who had a cautious start to his home race weekend in Imola, ending the first free practice session 532 thousandths off the top. At the same time, it wasn't a great start for Max Verstappen and Red Bull either, as the 4-time world champion could manage only the 7th fastest time, 360 thousandths behind, and at several points expressed frustration with the car. In particular, he complained over team radio that the rear end was moving so much it felt like drifting. His teammate Yuki Tsunoda fared even worse, still struggling to find the RB21's limit and finishing only 16th. Gabriel Bortoleto ended what had been a surprisingly strong session for Sauber on a sour note. The Hinwil-based team, celebrating its 600th Grand Prix this weekend, managed to get both cars into the top 10, with the Brazilian 9th ahead of Nico Hülkenberg. However, the reigning Formula 2 champion caused a red flag late in the session by crashing into the wall at Rivazza's second turn, fortunately without injury, though the same couldn't be said for his car. Despite introducing a major aerodynamic upgrade package this weekend, Aston Martin are still outside the top positions, with Lance Stroll in 11th and Fernando Alonso all the way down in 14th. The most troubled, however, seemed to be Racing Bulls and Haas, stuck in the lower part of the standings, all the way from Liam Lawson in 15th to Esteban Ocon in 20th and last place. It's already time to return to the track at the Autodromo Enzo e Dino Ferrari in Imola. In just a few hours, Free Practice 2 begins, one of the most important sessions of the weekend. After the work done at midday, the teams will try to fine-tune their cars ahead of tomorrow.